Hold up.
Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. It's been a month or so since I last uploaded on YouTube, so I thought I would sit down, make a video, give you my thoughts on some products that I have been recently loving and some products that, well, two products that I'm actually trying out for the first time on camera. So if you want to see how I get on in this video, how I created this eye makeup look, and what I thought of the products that I used in this video, then please don't forget to carry on watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe and share this video with your friends and family, and let's just get straight into the video. Okay guys, so I'm just going to get stuck straight in. So from the title of this video you will know that I am going to be testing out some new products. Not all the products are completely new to the beauty industry, but most of them are new to me, so I thought I would test them out in this video to show you guys how I get on with them. A couple of the products I have already tested out. Now I wanted to test out the Morphe concealer. Unfortunately, for some reason I've misplaced it somewhere. I have searched everywhere for it and I can't seem to find it, but I do have the foundation that I want to kind of talk more about. I'm not going to try it on my face because I actually have another foundation and another concealer I want to test out. With this Morphe foundation, it is a full coverage foundation. I have the shade F2.50 and it is a matte foundation. It says it's 24-hour long wear, sweat proof, transfer resistant, water resistant and great for all skin types. I will give it that. My skin is really dry and I've wore this foundation in a couple of my Instagram videos and it's not dried out my skin. If anything, my skin looks really flawless. When I wore it the other day, my partner actually said to me that I actually look like a doll because of how flawless my skin looked. It looked like glass, and I've worn it throughout the day and it doesn't crack on the skin. As time goes on, my skin doesn't look oily, and I was pretty impressed with it because I have seen a couple of reviews online in regards to this Morphe foundation. A lot of people have disliked it or it's cracked on their skin, but with me it was like completely the opposite. It does smell a bit like paint. That is the only thing that puts me off this foundation, but apart from that, everything else about it is great. So this foundation is very full coverage, so you only need the tiniest amount. I will test some of this out on the back of my hand just so that you guys can see the colour. The foundation, in terms of consistency, the foundation is quite thick. It's not as thick as other foundations I have tried, but you can immediately see that it is really full coverage. For some reason this reminds me a lot like the MAC full coverage foundation. What's it called? It's normally in like a tube. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the most full coverage foundation that MAC do and it reminds me of that. So I feel like this could be a dupe for it, and it is a fraction of the price. This only cost me I think £12 with discount. I think it was £12. I think it does retail for around £16. It is the perfect colour and it's got like a yellowish green undertone to it, which I live for because my skin is quite yellow. I would not recommend wearing this every day, but if you are a full coverage foundation kind of person, then this is definitely for you. So that's just a quick review of the Morphe foundation. I was so gutted because I really wanted to try the concealer with it and show you guys what it looked like, but if I do find the concealer then I will do like a separate video wearing this foundation with the concealer. So let's just jump on to primer. For primer I'm using this Unicorn Primer Drops. It's a beauty elixir by Barry M. Instantly you can tell that this is a dupe for the Farsali Unicorn Primer, and the packaging is pretty similar apart from the fact that the bottle is more like squared. The Farsali comes in a round bottle kind of shape, but it is like the same kind of concept. The colour is exactly the same as well. The serum's consistency, I feel like this one is slightly more thicker than the Farsali one, but it does the exact same thing. It actually gives my skin a really tacky kind of finish, which is what the Farsali one does as well, and it hydrates my skin, which I generally love, especially when using a primer. I'm not a big fan of like cream kind of primers. I prefer them to have like a more kind of sticky finish, and this Barry M1 does the exact same thing as the Farsali one, and imagine it is a fraction of the price. It's a lot cheaper, so I feel like instead of the Farsali one, I will definitely be stocking up on this Barry M one because it does the exact same thing. There have been times where I've wore the serum on its own and not used any moisturiser whatsoever, and then just put my foundation on top, and my skin looks amazing. It's so weird because I can't go a day without moisturiser, but this stuff is like magic in a bottle, so I would highly recommend trying this out. They also have different versions of this, so again they're dupes of the Farsali serums. I think they have like a green bottle which is like a blurring one, which is exactly the same as the Farsali one. I might stock up on them as well and see how I get on with them, but for now this one is amazing for anyone looking for a cheap alternative to a good primer. The next item I have in front of me is the EX1 Invisiwear Liquid Foundation. I have had this sitting on my beauty vanity for about, how many weeks now? Like 3 weeks? 3 to 4 weeks, and I have been dying to try this out. I got the shade 6.0. Now this brand is specifically made for anyone with yellow kind of undertones in their skin, and my skin is really yellow. Being a yellow undertoned girl, it's really hard to find a foundation that will match my skin, so I thought I would give this one a try. As you can see, I have not removed the packaging. So yeah, it is completely brand new. I don't even know if the colour will match my skin. It comes with a standard pump. I quite like the packaging, even though it's like plastic. I feel like it would be really travel friendly. It seems really secure as well. You get 30ml in this bottle, which is standard for any foundation. I'm just going to give this a quick shake and apply some on the back of my hand. So I'm just going to do like one pump. The colour seems okay actually. I thought it would have been a little bit dark for my skin tone, but it seems okay. I'm not going to colour correct today because recently I've not been colour correcting under my eyes. I'm actually kind of liking the look that it gives me. So I'm going to grab my Real Techniques beauty sponge and just start to apply that to my face. Instantly I can tell that it is really lightweight. It's not thick in consistency, and I feel it's applying really well. It's blending out really nice as well. So I wouldn't say this is full coverage. I would say it is medium to full coverage. So I think I might apply like one pump with a beauty blender and then one pump on this side with a foundation brush. I actually really like it. It matches my skin really well, and it's actually brightened my face at the same time. It's not clung on to any of my dry patches, and if anything I actually really like the feel of it. It doesn't feel like I have a lot of foundation on my face. My skin just actually looks like skin. Okay, instantly I feel like it's not really doing much with the brush. My skin, I feel like it's just kind of like blended away. I've not really got any type of coverage on the face, so maybe if I like stipple it in a little bit. It's not covering up like my scarring on my face, like any kind of pigmentation that I have on my face, which is weird because considering it is a brush you would think it would pick up a lot more product, but no, it's not really doing anything for me. I generally prefer it with the sponge, so I'm just going to go back in and start to kind of blend in with the sponge. I don't like the coverage of the foundation with a brush. I generally prefer it with the sponge. This is like the perfect foundation for me because it's not too dewy, you still have like a slight shine on the face, and it's not very heavy on the skin either. It doesn't even feel like I'm wearing foundation. Everything just looks very natural on the skin, and again the colour is perfection. So for concealer I have the EX1 Delete Fluid Concealer, and this is in the shade 3.0. It says it's a highly pigmented full coverage concealer. that instantly covers blemishes and imperfections. It's oil free and non-pore clogging. I like the fact that it comes in a pump, it's easy to disperse. It is quite light, which I'm loving and living for because I do want to highlight under my eyes. It is quite thick in consistency. It doesn't look like it's drying under my eyes. I'm just going to take like a small handheld mirror just to see. It actually feels quite hydrating under my eyes. I've used a lot of like thick full coverage concealers, and after a while, or when I first apply them, they look really heavy on the skin and can start to sit in my fine lines. But this one seems pretty nice, to be fair. It's got like a powdery finish, so I don't even think you would need a lot of powder to kind of set under the eyes. You can see instantly that it's brightened up my eyes. So this is the side with the concealer and this is the side without any concealer. I wouldn't say that it is completely covered up my dark circle because I can still see some of my pigmentation kind of peeping through, but it's done a pretty decent job. I actually really like that, like really like that. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing a full coverage concealer under my eyes. It feels really natural despite the fact that the consistency is quite heavy. When you apply it under your eyes, it doesn't feel heavy at all. I'm so impressed with that, like really impressed. Definitely a good buy. Okay, so I've just done the other side of camera. And guys, I actually really like this foundation and concealer together. The concealer is so lightweight. I'm honestly shocked. The only downside to it is after like a couple of minutes, it will begin to crease, so you would have to kind of set it straight away. So I went onto the Cult Beauty website and I have been dying to try out the Morphe foundation, the Morphe concealer and their powder. Like I said, I've misplaced the concealer, so I do not know where it is, but I do have their Morphe Bake and Set setting powder. I have used this powder before in 2 or 3 of my Instagram videos, and I actually really like this powder. This is in the shade Brightening Pink. I always tend to go for a banana powder and I wanted to try something a little bit different. I can actually bake with this for quite some time and it won't dry up my skin, which I really love. The good thing about this is it's not too pink, so it doesn't look too pink on your skin. It just gives your skin this like natural glow, and like I said, it brightens my under eyes really nicely as well. So I'm just going to place some of that under my eyes, and like you can see straight away it is very finely milled. So this is a baking and setting powder. You don't have to use this to bake. If you're not a fan of baking, then you can just use it to set your foundation, but I honestly really like it. It does say that it oil absorbs, and I would definitely agree with it. Anytime I've worn this powder, I've never been I don't get oily throughout the day. My skin actually just looks the way it was when I first applied the foundation. There's nothing that I don't like at the moment so far. Because I have tested, well, I've not tested, I've used the primer and the powder before, and like I said, they are definitely my favourite, and the foundation and the concealer I'm trying for the first time, so I'll let you know how I get on with the foundation and concealer at the end of this video. It does take me around 2 to 3 hours to film, so by the end of the 2 to 3 hours I will let you know what the foundation looks like, how I feel about it, and if I am still loving it. For primer, I bought this new product. It's the P. Louise base. If you watch my previous YouTube tutorial, you will know that I watched one of Coastal Beauty's YouTube videos. In that video, she used the P. Louise base. So I decided to get my hands on it and give it a try and see what the hype was all about. And I have used this again in a couple of my videos, and let me tell you, it is nice. It is a good primer, but it's not like unbelievably good. The shade that I went for is number 2. The only thing I would say about this base is that it looks quite dry on your eyelid. It doesn't matter how many times I go in and prep my eyelids, I feel like this primer still looks quite dry on my eyes. I don't know why that is. So when I place this onto my eyelids, I have to really pat it into my skin. I think that's probably the best way, otherwise it just kind of blends away. It clings to a lot of my dry patches, so I never set this. I think the best way to apply this is by not setting it anyways. For eyeshadow, I am going in with the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. I am honestly living for this palette. Like, the colours in this are so different and they're very metallic-y, very glittery. I have already dipped into this palette. I actually used it for the first time yesterday to film an Instagram tutorial. The shadows that I have tried, like the metallic-y ones, really nice. Very pigmented. The formula is very buttery. Okay, now that I have you guys zoomed in, I hope you can see clearly. I know that like the top half of my head is missing, but just ignore that for a second. I'm going to go in with the shade Karma, which is this shade here. I'm going to pop that into my crease with a fluffy MAC blending brush. This is the 224 brush. I'm just going to tap off any excess, place it into my crease and start to kind of blend in. These shadows are so easy to blend. I like the fact that you have like warm tones and cool tones in this palette, so you can come up with different looks. So the next shade I am going to take is this shade here called Crash. One thing I have noticed with this palette is there is a lot of kickback in the pan. Don't know if you can see just there. So you have to kind of like dust off your brush quite a bit. This colour seems to be a little more violet-y. I don't know why, that's really weird. It looks quite brown in the pan, but when you apply it to your lid, it looks really purpley. That's really weird. I'm just going to go back in with a fluffy brush, kind of again diffuse out the edges. I love the formula of the eyeshadows. They're so creamy and very buttery, a lot more buttery and creamy than her other palettes. I am going to go in with the shade Galaxy. I'm going to take the shade Galaxy and I'm actually going to place that all over my lid, and then go in with the shade Vortex, which is this like deep purple shade here. And with this deep purple shade, I am going to kind of place that on my outer corner. To do this, I am just going to wet my brush. I'm just using this Becca Glow Shield Priming and Setting mist. Before I go in and apply anything onto my eyelids, I am just going to do some swatches of the kind of shimmery and the metallic-y shades on the back of my hand, just so that you get an idea of what these colours look like. These colours are so pigmented. I literally had to swipe my finger in once, and that is the colour payoff. Huda Beauty has always recommended going in with your fingers when applying like her glittery shades or sparkly shades onto the eyes. So I would highly recommend, if you are going to apply any shadows onto your eyes, to go in with your fingers. But for the purpose of this video, I want to test it out on a brush and then maybe do my other eye with my fingers. And I'm just going to start to pat that on. I feel like it looks a lot more pigmented in the swatch. Maybe if I go back in with my finger and try, yeah, look at the difference. So I obviously tried it with a brush first, and now with my finger it just looks so much more pigmented. I'm going to take the shade Supermoon, which is this shade here, and I'm just going to place that in the centre just to kind of help it kind of pop a little bit. I'm going to go in with this shade. So I was going to go in with Vortex initially, but I'm going to take this shade and start to kind of blend it into the shimmer shade, and then deepen up that crease. And then I'm going to bring it towards like my inner corner. A lot of the tones in this have like a purpley violet tinge to them. So if you're into like pinks and purples and like obviously blues, and more like neutral colours, this palette is definitely for you. And then just kind of diffuse the edges. I'm just going to do the other eye off camera and then we can complete the eye look, and I will be right back. Okay guys, I've just done the other eye off camera and applied Huda Beauty's Life Liner. I feel like it's missing like some sort of dimensions. I'm now going to go in with the shade Vortex. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to place it like on the edges of my liner just to kind of smoke it out a little bit, because I feel like it just looks really flat. Instantly that's like completely changed the way the shadow is looking. I'm going to go back in with the shade Vortex and then start to blend that on my lower lash line. I have just completed the rest of my eyes. So I have just applied eyelashes, obviously, and I have applied like a nude eye pencil to my lower lash line. I used the Pixie Endless Silky eye pencil. I'm going to go in with the shade Gold Glitch, and I'm just going to place that on the outer kind of part of my eye. So I'm going to place it like just here, like in the middle. I'm also going to take the shade Supermoon, which is the one that we applied in the middle of our eye, and just apply that to the corners. Look how pigmented that is. That is crazy. And I might actually just take that on my brow bone. Now that you guys are zoomed back out, I am now going to use this Hourglass. It's like a contouring blush kind of palette. This is called the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit. So this is actually a holiday palette that I was dying to try out. I have never tried out any Hourglass products, so I wanted to see how they are on the skin because everyone raves about Hourglass. The downside to this palette is that because it's got like mirrored packaging, it gets dirty really quickly. I feel like the packaging to this is pretty shit, to be honest. It's like plastic kind of packaging. It doesn't feel luxurious. I know this is like a holiday palette, but considering you're paying 75, and I mean £75 for this palette, and you only get 6 shades, it's a bit pricey. Would I recommend you going out and paying £75 for a blush and contour palette? I don't think so. I'm sorry to say, I would not. I wouldn't purchase another Hourglass palette. As nice as this is, it's just not worth the £75. The colours are very light, so they're not as pigmented as other palettes out there. So if you are looking for a highly pigmented palette, this is definitely not for you. I would say this palette is for more light to medium skin tones. The colour payoff would not show on dark skin tones whatsoever. At the back it shows you like a little diagram. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it lists down below like what they're all for. So these two at the top are finishing powders, so it just depends on yourself what kind of colour powder you like to use under your eyes or all over your face. This one here is a strobe powder, so it's the iridescent strobe lighting powder, so I would say it is a highlighting powder. This one obviously is a bronzer. This is a strobe blush, so it's got iridescent rose, so it's got obviously glitter flecks to it, and this is a sublime finish, meaning it is more matte than the one in the middle. It gives more of like a flush to your skin, so because it's not as pigmented as other bronzers out there, it just kind of like lightly defines your cheekbone. Because I like everything to look heavy and just all glam, I prefer my contour to have a bit more pigment to it. So I'm just going to go in with my beauty blender and I'm just going to like begin to like pat down the excess powder onto the rest of my face. Now a lot of people would wipe it off at this point, but Recently I've just been dabbing it into my skin and it just makes my skin look so much more flawless. So for blush, I think I'm going to go in with the matte one on the right hand side and just test some of that out. It just plays a little bit on my cheeks. So it just gives like a slight flush of colour. I'm not a huge fan of blush, but I guess this could work because it's not as pigmented as other blushes out there. Just to test out the middle kind of banana shade, I'm just going to take a little bit like under my eyes. I'm just using my finger to do so because I don't want to build up on too much powder. Otherwise it will start to look cakey on my skin. That's quite drying on the skin, and it's got like this weird like texture to it, so it's way too powdery to be like a finishing powder. I guess like you can apply that powder all over the face, but for me I just feel like it looks very drying around like the nose area. For highlight, again, I'm just going to use this shade here, and hopefully this does something to my skin because so far I'm not a huge fan of this palette. So if I just apply some to my cheekbones, I'm hoping this gives some sort of glow. Okay, it's giving a more natural finish. Like, one good thing about this palette is that the formula of the powders are very creamy, so they are very powdery, but they make your skin look quite smooth. The only powder that I disliked was the finishing powder because that kind of dried out my skin. You really have to like dig into the palette to get like colour payoff. Take some on the tip of my nose, down the bridge of my nose, just a little bit on my forehead area, and Cupid's bow. I don't have a new lip product I'm going to test out, so I'm just going to apply a Huda Beauty lipstick. I'm going to go in with the shade Trendsetter from the Huda Beauty Matte Lip Collection, finish off, and then I will be right back. For setting spray, I have this Ofra Cosmetics Makeup Fixer. Apply that to my face. That setting spray smells like bubble bath, like it's very fresh and it feels very refreshing on the skin. I actually liked everything in this video apart from the Hourglass palette. Don't get me wrong, the palette is nice for anyone looking for something a lot more natural. I personally didn't like it. It's got like a more natural finish. The finishing powders are too powdery for me. The contour, the blush and the highlight are okay. They do leave your skin looking very smooth, and it does kind of like lift your skin a little bit, so it does look very glowy and very natural. It's definitely not worth the price. For a holiday edit, I guess it's okay. In terms of the foundation is sitting so well on my skin. The concealer is sitting so well on my skin. This is definitely a foundation and concealer I would recommend. There aren't many drugstore concealers and foundations out there that I'm a huge fan of, but this definitely does it for me. I would definitely repurchase this foundation and concealer. I haven't oiled up so far. I've been filming for around 2 hours now. Foundation normally comes off around my nose, but it's sitting well on my nose area. If you enjoy these type of videos, please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, and hopefully I will catch you in my next one. Bye everyone.